Start your business day right. Morning Drive with Tim Elliott on Mira Business FM.
This is the Morning Drive with me, Tim Elliott. Good morning to you. It's data privacy now. If you're running a business in the United Arab Emirates, from maybe a tech startup at DIFC, maybe a retail giant in Abu Dhabi, who knows? Your most valuable asset isn't the office, the inventory, it is your data. It's the new oil, of course, but in 2025, that asset has become potentially a huge legal liability if you aren't playing by the rules. Now, fines can reach up to 5 million dirhams, and new private rights of action allow individuals to sue for privacy breaches, and the grace period is officially over. So, let's talk to the expert. Raymond Kisswany is a partner at Davidson Co. He heads up the international trade, digital assets and startups practices, and is the man businesses call when they need to bridge the gap between innovation and regulation. And here he is to help us navigate what is a data minefield. There's another introduction for you, Raymond. Good to see you.
Very good morning. Always a pleasure.
Always good to have you here. So I said that data's the new oil. I got told that years ago. I was at a training event, and the guy was talking about data and the importance of it, and I was struck by that phrase. Thought it was a new thing. It's been around for a while. It's a phrase that's bandied about. So what I did with this is I typed how important is data into a browser yesterday. Okay, so doing some research ahead of chatting to you today. Crucial asset in today's digital world. It drives decision making, enhances efficiency, and fuels innovation. That's kind of the crux of what data is. But it's a whole lot more than just a 4-letter word, isn't it?
It is so crucially important. It's a bit like last week when we were talking about consumer protection. I mean, this is another one that literally affects every single human being, because we all have data in one form or another, be it our mobile number, our email, our credit card information, all of these things. You know, I was actually on the drive this morning. My daughter, my 9-year-old, was asking me what I was going to be talking about today. I said data protection law. She said, "What does that mean?" So I was trying to explain to her what. So I was actually really good practice, because trying really to explain to
I'm like
a
9-year-old. How did you get that across to her?
So I was beginning to first explain what data is, and I was basically saying, you know, anytime that we are going online is the very basic thing. So if I'm buying something off of Amazon, they have my email address, they have the password that I've entered in to be able to log into Amazon. They've got my credit card information, they have my address, they have my phone number. All of that is my data. It belongs to me, but I'm having to share it to be able to do all these things. Even if I go into a supermarket, unless you're paying with cash, they have your credit card information. They have some sort of, if you have for example, like a Costa voucher card, they have that information. So all of that is data, and you can see how vital it is, because everybody's trying to contact you. Everybody's trying to drive information to you that is almost very specific, using that data. And so she said, "Oh, well, that means that anybody can do whatever they want with it." And I said, "Exactly." And that's what data protection law is trying to stop. We want businesses to thrive. We want businesses to be able to deliver something to you within a few hours from Talabat. Sure. We want that convenience that we didn't have just a few years ago. But at the same time, we want to be able to protect it. That I know if I'm buying a cup of coffee, I'm not going to have my personal information being used for something that I didn't intend to be. And that's really what data protection is all about. It affects all of us, whether we're the consumer or we are the business. And especially for businesses, getting it right is so crucial.
And understanding the value of your data is so crucial, and that's such a good way to encapsulate it. I think that the kind of 9-year-old approach, because it's something that I think lots of people don't really understand, don't really take as seriously. It's very easy to sign up to, you know, a new email account or a new account online, and you are sharing data, and you know we kind of forget that. The thing about it is as well, volumes of data are going to continue to grow. The importance, the value is only going to increase. So data literacy is really important for not just for us, but it's also important for organizations. So there is a balance there. So that's kind of the context for this, the importance of the increased need for enforcement, the increased need for regulation, for due diligence, for care, for attention, being paid, I suppose, to business intelligence, really.
Exactly, exactly. We really entered where the kind of the grace period and businesses sort of having the ignorance of not knowing where things are. That time is really over, and we are really very much into enforcement. And I think people, consumers, are expecting that. We
Yeah.
are expecting that just because I've signed up to a newsletter that I'm not going to have my email being bombarded out. If I unsubscribe from something, that is the that I'm no longer going to be receiving this. I don't want my phone number being used for any other purpose other than what I've signed up for.
Yeah.
So we are entering that, and it's important for the consumer to understand that how valuable your data is. I think it was a number of years ago, if we remember, from Facebook during the Cambridge Analytica scandal.
Yeah.
And somebody I remember put it really well that Facebook is not in the social media business; they are in the data business. Who owns your data? Who controls your data? Who has knowledge of your data? Really controls quite a lot, because if I know all of this data about you, then I can drive targeted ads towards you. I can play. I mean, how many times has this occurred where you might be having a conversation about something, or you started Googling something, and all of a sudden those ads just start magically popping up on
Yeah.
Instagram or Facebook or etc. So
Yeah.
that's all about our data and understanding what we are giving in return for convenience, but also how we are protected.
It's a really good point. A few years ago, I keep bringing this up as the example. I bought a turntable, and then for about 3 or 4 years, all I got was ads for the same turntable. And I did think it's kind of scary, but it's also kind of comforting to know that I've already bought it. It's a bit useless trying to sell me another one, unless it's got inbuilt obsolescence. But that's a different story. So look, the grace period, there's kind of a reality check thing going on at the moment. For the past couple of years, really, we've been hearing about, maybe talking about, the UAE data protection law, which is what, number 45. That's the framework. So we're coming to the end of 2025. The wait and see period is kind of over, really, isn't it?
It's not kind of, it is unequivocally,
It's done. Yeah.
the grace period is over. I mean, for the past sort of 2 to 3-ish years, many UAE businesses have treated the data protection law like a future problem, like a wait and see. The attitude was sort of, let's see how aggressive regulators
Sure.
can get.
Yeah.
That approach worked temporarily, because regulators were really focused in the past sort of 2 to 3 years on education, capacity building, sort of issuing guidance. But in this past year, certainly, I think three things happened almost simultaneously. The first thing is that the UAE Data Office became officially operational. It's no longer advisory. The big change, and you alluded to it in the opening, is the DIFC introducing a private right of action,
Yeah.
which has completely changed the risk profile that businesses face. And third is that enforcement has really tightened up. The UAE is very integrated into global data ecosystems, and enforcement is there. So today, on the cusp of 2026, quickly approaching, the question is no longer will someone enforce this law? The question is, who enforces it first? Is it going to be the regulator, your customer, or a commercial counterpart? So from a legal advisory standpoint, we're telling our clients very clearly and very directly that non-compliance is no longer just a theoretical risk. This is very much a live operational exposure that you face. And importantly, regulators now have the expectation that businesses have had enough time, enough education to comply. So ignorance is ignorance is never a good
It's never an excuse, is it?
a good excuse, but it
Yeah.
is certainly not even a mitigating factor anymore.
Right. Okay. And the other side of this is there are some punitive financial issues as well. Potentially, there's all this talk of the $5 million handshake for data breaches, which would be obviously a top tier fine. But talk to me about the specific actions that could actually trigger a fine, and also trigger a fine of that level.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, obviously, all of the news and press releases are sort of talking about the 5 million
They are,
dirham thing,
yeah.
just because obviously it's a very catchy number, shall we say?
It is.
That figure tends to sound more abstract until you understand what actually triggers it. This is, just to be clear, this fine is not for just kind of minor paperwork errors. These are reserved for structural failures that a business commits. So in real practice, the three main categories that would trigger that kind of top tier penalty is, I'd say number one is processing data without a lawful basis. That would include collecting data without proper consent, using that data for purposes that were never disclosed, or repurposing the data.
Right.
For example, if you feed it into an AI system, you sell off that data, all of that without having updated privacy notices or obtained fresh consent from your customer. The second way is a serious security failure. If the breach occurs and the regulator finds that the company had inadequate security controls or outdated systems, or the incident response plan was not there or not adequate, that escalates the fines very quickly. The fine is not for the breach itself; it's about the negligence that led to the breach, shall we say?
Right.
And the third one would be is ignoring data subject rights. What we mean by that is that would be a failure to respond to an access request or a deletion request or objections, especially when it becomes a systematic failure. That would be viewed as sort of a willful a willful non-compliance.
Okay.
So that's things like I've tried to unsubscribe 1,000 times and I'm still getting the information. And it's happening not just to me, to everybody else. It's not just one minor glitch.
Right.
So I think it's important for us to understand the way that regulation and regulators are thinking is that fines are not just punitive for the action. They also serve as a signaling mechanism to the market. When a regulator imposes a really high fine like that, they're really sending a message to the market and to customers generally, is that this behavior is unacceptable, and we expect not just your company to take notice of it, but we are expecting everybody to pay attention to it. And it's trying to reinforce market composure that we are on top of it. So that's why we kind of call it the 5 million dirham handshake. It's the moment when a company realizes that data protection is no longer kind of an optional, we'll see how it goes. That compliance is really a board level conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it's as much as it's a great headline, the $5 million dirham handshake, but it makes the point, doesn't it? It reinforces the point. We're a little bit short on time today, but I've got a couple of questions that I really want to ask you. The UAE Data Office, as you said, fully operational now, unequivocally, this is happening. Have we seen the move from just issuing guidance to conducting any active audits, or have any public warnings been issued yet?
Yeah, they're certainly putting out investigations. They are certainly looking at what companies have in terms of their website policies, what their internal notes are. So there is very much an ongoing presence. I mean, one thing the UAE does slightly different than other jurisdictions is that there isn't kind of the naming and shaming
Mm.
that occurs. But it is very much an active, and we are seeing certainly clients getting those requests and spot checks to see where there are gaps in policies and in sort of website terms and conditions, privacy notes, etc. One thing that I would say is actually, and I think a lot of people are going to be surprised by this, is uh, data protection seems to be more problematic the bigger a company gets, the more international a company gets.
Right.
The
Right.
reason for that is that um, a lot of times, unfortunately, what happens is, and I really, really despise the word boilerplate, is because you'll have a really successful, for example, UK company. They've got the best privacy policies, they've got the best controls going on that are compliant with UK law,
Right.
or a German company, or wherever it is.
Sure.
And they start operating here, and you're not following UAE data protection law. So just like how you have to follow employment law of the country that you're operating in, same way you have to follow tax law of the country you're
Mm-hmm.
operating in,
Mm-hmm.
you need to follow data protection law. So, with my mom being in the studio as a doctor, I'll use a medical example, right? If you have an ear infection, you go to an ENT, not a cardiologist,
For sure.
right? So go to a specialist that is there, whether you are a blue chip company or a small mom and pop shop. And oftentimes I see the bigger problems happening with larger international companies than with smaller ones.
It's interesting that because this is kind of application of company principles, and that's fine. And you're doing the right thing, but you're not doing the right thing in your jurisdiction.
Absolutely.
I guess it's something you come across a lot. July 2025. Let's talk about the private right for action. This is when the DIFC introduced private right of action. We both referred to it. So it means that individuals can now sue companies directly for data mishandling without waiting for the regulator. That's the essence of what is happening and what this does mean. Can you explain how this shifts the risks from administrative to litigation for firms in Dubai, in the UAE?
Yeah, so I mean the big issue here is that this is no longer just a regulatory issue. That the fear is that you're going to have a regulator knocking on your door, asking for information, and you facing a fine.
Right.
This is where an individual that is affected by a company's uh, failure to adhere to the data protection law
Mm.
can effectively sue that company. Um, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Is me as an individual, if my data um, has not been used correctly, then I have a right to effectively sue. So this is without exaggeration one of the most significant legal shifts that we've seen in Dubai, probably in the last decade, I would say, because previously data protection was really largely a regulator business conversation. Like I said, you dealt with warnings, you dealt with fines, remediation orders, etc. Now this is a business to individual litigation, similar to a contract breach that you have or anything like that. So what this means is not just customers, but it also includes employees, contractors, platform users, anyone or any person or any entity that is affected by your lack of data protection
Mm.
has a right to bring a claim directly without waiting for a regulator to act. They can just immediately sue. Um, and it really changes everything for a business because it introduces legal costs. It has discovery or disclosure obligations, just like a regular court case. We're talking about DIFC courts, which every single case is public, so that includes reputational risk. And it includes precedent risk because the DIFC courts are English common law based, and so you have precedents. So even if the claim value is modest, the process is going to be expensive, it's going to be distracting, and there's a lot of non-monetary harm that can be done from it. So this is a litigation risk, not a compliance risk. And that's why insurance companies, investors, those that are looking to acquire a company are now doing data diligence in addition to sort of your general kind of corporate due diligence.
Okay. We are out of time, but I've got one very quick question. I wonder if I can just put this to you. There's a lot more we need to talk about here, so I think we're going to have to come back to this as a topic. But if you were sitting in a boardroom today, what's the one question the boss, the CEO, the managing director, whoever it is, should be saying or asking their IT head to find out if they're actually compliant, or if it's just paper compliance, as it were? What would you say?
I think the 5 million dirham question that should be asked
That's what it is.
is if I was a CEO, I would say if we had a data breach tonight or rather, if we had a data breach at 2 a.m. on a Friday, who does what in the first 24 hours, and how do we know? If the answer is vague, or it's inconsistent, or theoretical, or then you're not ready. Okay. Compliance on paper is absolutely meaningless if you can't actually go through it under pressure. Real compliance is operational. It has to be just like a fire drill, right? It's all well and good knowing where the exit issues are and whatever, but if it hasn't been tested, if it hasn't been rehearsed, if it hasn't been owed, then it's absolutely meaningless. And that's the question that really reveals the checklist that you need to have. Run it just like a fire drill. Run it like any sort of drill that you need, because it's just having something on paper is not going to help you.
So get on it now.
Absolutely. And remember, where regulators and where the right to a private action really comes in, and where that sort of top tier penalties get in, is not for the actual breach itself, is for the negligence that led up to the breach, and that and how that breach could have been mitigated if you had proper systems in place.
Well, it reveals systemic failures, doesn't it? That's the point. So it is a moment of reflection as well. Always enjoy talking to you. Raymond Kisswany is a partner at Davidson Co. We're going to have to get into some more detail on this. But for now, that's where we are. You head up the international trade, digital assets and startups practices. And as always, thank you, Raymond. And thank you, Raymond's Ma, as well, who was with us in the studio. Nice to see you.
Pleasure to have you.
Great to have you here. Don't forget, leave us a like, hit subscribe wherever you're joining us from. Get in touch. Let us know what you think. We are all over social media and streaming online. And everything's available to listen or watch again wherever you get your podcasts from. This is Mira Business FM.